Let's get our hands together. Let's sing this out. Oh, my soul, it overflows at the power of your love. Bones awake and graves are break. Death defeated by your blood. Come on, my soul will sing. My soul will sing. Glory to Jesus, my Savior, my God and my King. All honor and power forever. And I won't let rocks give the praise you deserve. I won't stay silent till heaven meets earth. My soul will sing. Glory to Jesus. Oh, come on. Oh, my soul has found a friend who surely died but rose again. I'll shout aloud my joyful sound. Oh, I'll bow my head and cast my crown. Come on. My soul will sing. Glory to Jesus, my Savior, my God and my King. All honor and power forever. And I won't let rocks give the praise you deserve. I won't stay silent till heaven meets earth. My soul will sing. Glory to Jesus. Oh, you're worthy, Lord. Give it all to you. Let's sing this together. It's for all you've done and for all you're doing, for all to come. I give you glory. It's for all you've done and for all you're doing, for all to come. We believe this, so let's sing this out together. It's for all you've done, for all you're doing, and for all to come. We give you glory. It's for all you've done. Come on. And for all you're doing, for all to come. I give you glory. his people join in and sing. We call on the name of Jesus, the only truth that we know. No other power can save, no other name broke the grave than the name that is Jesus. It's you were there, you are tonight, Lord. You heard your children then, you hear your children now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You answer prayers back, and you will answer now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You were providing then, you are providing now. You are the same. Thank you, God. You are the same God. And you moved in power then, God moved in power now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You were a healer then, you were a healer now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You were a savior then, you are a savior now. You are the same God. You are the same God. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. Thank you, Lord, on your faithfulness. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. Yes, on your
Hey, church family, we are continuing in our series called Blind Spots, and we're talking about those areas of life that can sneak up on us. Specifically, we're addressing some of the emotions that we don't always notice as soon as we should, but if we don't give them attention, they can run us off the road. And this weekend, you're gonna be hearing from John Weiss. John is the senior pastor at Southland Christian Church just up the road. And Southeast and Southland have had a close connection as churches for a long time, like since long before I was here. Our churches have been in close partnership with each other. We've had our preachers go there and their preachers come here. And so we're glad to continue that tradition. John is also a lifelong friend of mine. We grew up together, ran around the neighborhood, rode bikes, the whole thing. So it's really sweet that God would allow us to both be at these churches, Southeast and Southland, and have the privilege of doing some ministry together. So glad that he could be here to preach and to continue the series. Would you please welcome John Weiss.
Well, thank you. When my son was 3 or 4 years of age, we were in a big box department store in Lexington doing some last minute Christmas shopping, wall-to-wall people, so I'm holding onto his hand, making sure he doesn't get lost. And somewhere in the chaos of that day, he looked at me and said, "Dad, I really need to go to the bathroom." Well, we had been drinking these slushies, and I knew what the word really meant in that phrase. As a parent, you have just a little window of opportunity, so I start scouring, looking for the bathrooms. I can't find it. So I stop a manager of the store, and I ask her, and she points us in the right direction. Now, the only unfortunate thing about the location of the bathroom is that we were gonna have to walk through the women's underwear section to get there. So I am walking with my head down, doing my best not to make eye contact with anyone or anything, and that's when my little boy says, "Dad, look," which is the most dangerous thing to say in that section of the store, especially if you're a preacher. And so I kind of hesitate, and I look up, and right then he lets go of my hand, and like a little jackrabbit, little bolt of lightning, he just takes off running. Love to play hide and seek in stores, and I'm like, "Oh, buddy, not here, not now." And all these women are starting to giggle. They see what's happening. And so I'm sheepishly calling his name. And that's when I see him. My boy is standing up on a sales table. And he has got, a bra above his head. And he says with all the excitement that a little boy can muster, "Dad, on Tom and Jerry, they use these as parachutes." And he runs and jumps off the table. And I am mortified. I turn every shade of Louisville Cardinal red you can imagine. I scoop him up, and before I can say anything to Silas, I hear this female voice behind me. And it says, "Hey, aren't you the preacher at Southland Christian Church?" And I very quickly said, "No, ma'am. My name is Kyle Eidelman. I preach at Southeast Christian in Louisville. We'd love to have you come sometime if you're ever in the area." I didn't say that. I said, "Oh, I'm Dave Stone. It's nice to meet you." No, I'm just kidding. They're better looking. I couldn't pull that off. So in that moment with my little boy, I can't say that I was happy with him, nor can I say I was mad at him. It wasn't the first time, nor would it be the last time that I battled this tension between irritation and indignation. Irritation, as you know, the small stuff, right? Like a mosquito on a hot summer day that won't leave you alone, or that slow driver in the left lane on the Gene Snyder, or that referee who makes a terrible call in the Yum Center. It's not catastrophic. It's not the end of the world, but man, it gets under the skin and it just bothers us, doesn't it? Indignation on the other end of the spectrum is when we see a video of a helpless, defenseless, elderly person being jumped, being mugged, being senselessly beat up on a street. And man, the justice side of our emotional wiring kicks in and we want to retaliate, we want to defend. In between these two unique expressions of anger is what I'll call frustration. And frustration is a more accurate description of what I was experiencing in that embarrassing parenting moment. I remember when my older brother was dating a girl named Beth in high school, and he caught me spying on them. And he scooped me up and he took me into the bathroom, put me in the shower with my clothes on and turned the cold water on. And man, I deserved it. It was worth it too. The whole rest of the week, I left little notes around the house. "Oh, Beth, how I love thee. Let me count the ways," right? I was just turning those screws. You can appreciate this dynamic. Doesn't matter if it's friendship, dating, marriage, parenting. In the relational world, we experience satisfaction, and then the next moment, frustration. I saw a video a few years ago that captures that. In the first year of marriage, this couple's just learning how to communicate and read between the lines. Take a look at this.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's gonna stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever gonna stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. Ow. If you would just...
Don't.
All my sweaters are snagged. It's the best line. You know, if there was anyone in the Bible who could understand the tug of war between irritation and indignation, anyone who could write a PhD dissertation on the subject of frustration, it would be Moses. I mean, we've had a front row seat to his entire life. Remember when he kills the Egyptian soldier with his bare hands? Remember when he takes the 10 Commandments and smashes them on the ground and they break to pieces? We've seen his temper tantrums. But there is an episode in his life that's somewhat overlooked. Moses' sister has just died. Couple that with the fact that his brother will die soon after. He's been leading Israel, maybe more than 1 million people for 38 or 39 years at the time, and they find themselves in the Sinai Peninsula. Ever seen it? It's a desolate, uninhabitable, no man's wasteland of a place. And they've run out of water. There's nothing for the people to drink, there's nothing for their livestock to drink, and that's where the story picks up in Numbers chapter 20. It says, the people blamed Moses and said, if only we had died in the Lord's presence with our brothers. Why have you, emphasis on you, brought the congregation of the Lord's people into the wilderness to die, along with all of our livestock? Why did you make us leave Egypt and bring us here to this terrible place? This land has no grain, no figs, no grapes, no pomegranates, and no water to drink. And our pets' heads are falling off. I mean, it's just frustration, frustration, frustration. But Moses knows that he has to count down before he blasts off. He knows he has to respond instead of react. And so he dismisses himself from this angry mob, goes into the tabernacle to pray, and that's where God shows up. And God says to him, you and Aaron must take the staff, the wooden rod, and assemble the entire community. As the people watch, speak to the rock. Notice the clear instructions. Speak to the rock over there, and it will pour out its water. You will provide enough water from the rock to satisfy the whole community and their livestock. In other words, God is saying, hey, Moses, this isn't your problem. It's my problem. You didn't lead the people of Egypt here, I did. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna crack this cliff open and a waterfall is gonna flow out and there won't be a water shortage anymore. But Moses is so much like me. He doesn't trust, he doesn't obey in the moment. Look what happens. He says, listen, you rebels. So he's shouting at the people of Israel. Must we, notice how he involves himself in this, must we bring you water from this rock? Here it is. Then Moses raised his hand and struck the rock twice with the staff, and water gushed out. So the entire community and their livestock drank their fill. Eleanor Roosevelt once said, anger is one letter short of danger. And if only she had been there to just whisper in Moses' ear in that moment, but she wasn't. So as the people are filling up their 5-gallon buckets and their Nalgene bottles, Moses gets a little tap on the shoulder. And God says, hey, buddy, can I talk to you in private over here for just a moment? And God looks at him and says, because you did not trust me enough to demonstrate my holiness to the people of Israel, you will not lead them into the land I am giving you. Frustration, anger, just one letter short of danger. My guess is if you've traveled at all in the last couple years, you've experienced some level of frustration in airports. I want to read just one lady's experience. This is a good one. She says, I was between flights at an airport. So I went in a store and bought a small package of cookies. Sat down, began reading a newspaper. Gradually, I became aware of a rustling noise from behind my newspaper. I was flabbergasted to see a neatly dressed man helping himself to my cookies. Not wanting to make a scene, I leaned over and took a cookie for myself. A minute or two passed, and then came more rustling. He was helping himself to another one of my cookies, so I grabbed another one. This went on until we were down to the last cookie, which the man broke in two, pushed half across to me, ate the other half, and left. When my flight was announced, I opened my handbag to get my ticket. To my shock and embarrassment, there I found my pack of unopened cookies. Not only had he not been eating my cookies, I had been eating his cookies. So, what do we do with the frustration that we feel from time to time? How do we handle it in a mature way? Well, the first step I want to give you is simply this: focus on good things, not bad things. This will be challenging with the nightly news. This will be challenging with social media. And the people you rub shoulders with every single day, and here's why. The average American complains 15 hours per month to a friend, family member, or coworker, anyone who will listen. So that means we spend an entire week every year, 7.5 days, complaining about bad things instead of celebrating good things. I want to draw your attention to maybe some little good things in our lives. So this is going to require some crowd participation at all the campuses. By show of hands, how many of you have a garage door opener? Can I see your hands? Okay, look around. My goodness, we're blessed. Right? You can push a button and your door just magically goes up. You don't have to get out during the rain or the snow. You don't have to deal with those crazy, nosy neighbors. It's unbelievable. How many of you own one of these? See hands, let's see hands. Spoons, anybody got spoons at their house? Yes, we can eat Cinnamon Toast Crunch, not with our bare hands, but with a spoon. It's unbelievable how blessed we are. And this is for cereal. Let me show you my ice cream spoon because it's significantly different, right? Hey, Baskin-Robbins is proof that God loves you, all right? I just want you to know that. How many of you have a toothbrush? Anyone have a toothbrush? Okay. How many of you are glad the person next to you has one, right? That's what really matters in this moment. On and on we could go with the good things. I lived in the country of Haiti for 4 years. Poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. And one morning I came out of my house and found 2 grown men, shirtless, emaciated, eating macaroni and cheese that I had thrown away 3 days earlier. One of them split, ran as quickly as he could. The other one couldn't get away. And so in shame, head down and hands up, he just kept pleading with me, please do not tell the police. Please do not have me thrown in prison. Please, 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 he kept saying. And I said, please forgive me for my excess. Please forgive me for my lack of hospitality and generosity. Friends, there's a woman named Sarah in Long Island, New York, who recently received an anonymous letter from a neighbor. And it just said, take down your Christmas lights, exclamation point. It's Valentine's Day, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. What the neighbor didn't realize is that Sarah had been taking care of her dad and her aunt who were wrestling with complications from COVID. And then both of them passed away. And so Sarah posted on her Facebook page for her neighbors to read, hey, I'm sorry about my Christmas lights. I've been dealing with these sick loved ones. They've passed away. I'm dealing with funeral arrangements. Once I get through all the legal matters and their estates are settled, I promise you I will take my Christmas lights down. Her neighbors felt terrible and started cooking meals for her family, dropped off gift cards, ran errands for them, and then in a sign of solidarity, all of them decided to put their Christmas lights back up in February. So I would tell you this, there's a verse in the Bible that says God is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in love. And there are people who act like that. May the same thing be said of us, that we're compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in love. These men get it. They saw an older woman trying to get into her car after a major downpour, and there was a big puddle outside of her car, and so they jumped into action, moved their delivery truck next to her car, lowered the liftgate, and created a bridge for her so she could get in quickly and easily without getting wet. My point is, there's plenty of bad, more than enough bad to go around. Can I encourage you to find the good and focus on the good this week and just watch what it does to your blood pressure? Next, I want to encourage you to focus on eternal things, not earthly things. 2 cousins got in an altercation, a physical fist fight in their grandmother's kitchen. It spilled over into the front yard. Eventually, neighbors had to call the police. This was in Fort Myers, Florida. I want to read 2 sentences from the nightly news report about this situation. It says, Garcia was charged with aggravated battery in connection with an altercation with his cousin who sustained injuries from a pocket knife. Authorities and witnesses confirmed that the argument was over whether almond milk was superior to whole milk. I'm pretty passionate about my 2%, to be honest, but I'm not going to stab anybody over it, okay? So let me ask you this question. Do you ever wonder if maybe Moses took that wooden staff hid it under his bed. Or maybe he had some fragments from the 10 Commandments that he kept in a drawer in the bedside nightstand. Just as a reminder that, hey, some things in life are not worth getting angry over. Will Rogers famously said, people who fly into a rage rarely make a good landing. Maybe that same sentiment is what motivated the Apostle Paul to write these great words. Think about the things of heaven, not the things of earth. So this week, when someone cuts you off in traffic, when you burn the roof of your mouth on some hot food or coffee, or when you stub your toe on a piece of furniture, maybe you need to remind yourself in that moment that this is temporary pain and not permanent pain. And sometimes we can look to creation for good examples. Let me use the sun. You know this. It rises in the east and sets where? In the west. So when you have a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day, you know the quickest way to get to the light isn't by going west, but by going east, through the darkness and towards the light. Meaning, tomorrow is always coming. And with it, the potential of it being a better day than the previous day. This is why the psalmist said, weeping may last for the night, but joy comes in the morning. Another way of thinking about eternal things and not earthly things is to be reminded that you have more life ahead of you than behind you. As a follower of Jesus, that's true. Now, here's the deal about Moses. He's over 100 years of age when he hits that rock with the wooden staff. Maybe he just needed a Snickers bar. I've been there. Did anyone else get grouchy when you're hungry or tired? Like, I lose my wits when I do. My family will tell you that. And then you know what I do? I foolishly load up my schedule and take on more than is humanly possible and fulfilling it. And you know what happens when I do that? I fail miserably as a husband, as a dad, as a pastor. And you know what happens then? Same thing happens to me, happens to you. Satan gets involved, and he tries to convince us that God has less forgiveness than we have sin. I'm here to tell you today that God's bucket of forgiveness is bigger than your bucket of sin. He has more joy than you have sadness, more help and hope and healing than you have hurt. See, I know this. The common language in the room is pain. All of us have been hurt. I'll use this little birthday cake to illustrate this. Maybe someone years ago did something to you, took something from you, said something about you, or did something to you. And man, it left you wounded. And so the way sadness works is sadness eventually becomes anger. Fuse gets lit in the human heart, and man, it can burn, can it? It could happen years ago, but you can still remember exactly the circumstances. And so you carry around this painful memory, this anger in your heart. But then you come to church and Kyle preaches a great sermon on forgiveness, and you go, you know what, he's right. I don't want the sun to go down on my anger, so I'm gonna let God have this anger. I'm gonna forgive. And so you forgive. But then you go to a birthday party and the person who hurt you is talked about in a positive light. Or someone posts a social media picture and your friends are now friends with that person. You're like, do you know what he did to me, what she said about me? All of a sudden that frustration comes back and it starts to burn. But then you read your Bible and you realize the price that Jesus paid for your sin, and you recognize that freedom isn't just given to the person you forgive, it's also given to yourself. And you don't want to be angry the rest of your life, and so you forgive. It's hard, isn't it? Because typically what happens is we wake up in the middle of the night. Excuse me. We wake up in the middle of the night. I'll get you one, brother. And we have what? Imaginary conversations? Imaginary confrontations? We say, oh, if I see this person. Anger is interesting. So here's what I'm learning about the nail in my own forehead. You have three options with frustration. You can express it, punch things, yell at things, throw things. You ever seen that work? You can repress it, bury it, stuff it, sweep it under the rug, act like it's not there, pretend it doesn't still impact you, but man, everyone else around you can see it. Or you can confess it. Give it to God in prayer. Surround yourself with good people. Maybe you need to jump into a group. Maybe you need to go to a rehab. Maybe you need to dial up a counselor. Whatever it is, I know this about God and his people. We're compassionate and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in love. All of us are like the rest of us. We need each other. My mom used to sing a little song over me and my siblings when we were little. Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. For the Father up above is looking down in love. Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. When I was a kid, I didn't get it. Now I do. It's all about perspective. And perspective is what helps us with blind spots. 25 years ago, I found the bottom of the emotional barrel. I was living in Haiti. I had just come off my second bout with malaria. And I lost. And I not only lost weight and sleep, I lost perspective. And I started feeling sorry for myself, and this selfishness took root. And man, I wanted to raise the white flag of surrender and be done. I wanted to move back to the States. And God knew what I needed. In that moment, this Haitian pastor invited me to come preach in his home church. And so some buddies and I, we hike up all day into this remote part of the island. And we get there about sundown. The sun's going down. And man, people are flooding to this little church building. And just to picture it, its roof is made of tarps and little 10 pieces. And there are really no walls. There's just 4 posts holding it up. Rocks on the ground for people to sit on and these hard wooden logs. And they didn't care. And they roll into this place and they start singing. And I'm standing in the back, and there was this desperation in their tone and inflection. And I realized they need heaven to be real. Their life here is so hard and so bad. And they needed God's throne to be bolted to the ground, and it is. Nothing that happens here changes where God is. And then they had this testimony time, and person after person, poverty like you can't fathom. They're talking about the little things that God has provided, and it was so genuine, their gratitude. And then they prayed, went to their knees, and man, God was their dad. You could hear it, you could sense it. And then they point to me to preach, and I'm like, I've got nothing to offer this crowd. But I preached. And I get done and I go to the back and I'm wiping the sweat off my face and they start singing again. And we're 3 or 4 hours into this church service, you all. And the pastor looks at me a second time and says, preach again. And my first sermon wasn't worthy of an encore, I'll tell you that. But I got back up and I preached a second time, and then afterwards, they lead me to this little hut. Walls are made of mud, roof is made of thatch. And my buddies and I were rolling out our bedding, and I take my shirt off and I begin to spray down with mosquito repellent, and the owner of the hut comes in and he laughs, which happens when I take my shirt off in public, by the way. And so my kids would tell you that. He says, you won't need the mosquito repellent. We don't have mosquitoes up here. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm gonna get my first good night's sleep in years. As he was walking out, he laughed. He said, we don't have mosquitoes, we have rats. And I looked at my buddies, and we didn't know if we should laugh or cry. We turned off our flashlights, and it sounded like someone was taking a bag of chips and just smashing it. I clicked my flashlight back on, and all these little eyes coming out of the thatch. And the rats come in from outside, and then it begins to rain, so we can't go outside. So I'm just standing in this hut. I stood up for 8 hours that night. Didn't get a wink of sleep. Next morning, sun comes up. We've been awake the whole night. They want us to teach. We teach all day. And then they want to feed us. And they feed us parts of a goat. I'm convinced God didn't want people to eat, right? And then they give me water to wash it down, and it's a different shade of clear than I'm familiar with. And so I drink this, and I'm like, God, please save me. And we go back to the building, and we preach again that night, and we go back to the hut. And the rats come back, and the rain comes, and I stood up again all night. By Sunday morning, I was delirious. And they want us to preach on the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus, and so we do. And anytime you preach on the love of God, people respond. And these adults come down the aisle, and they want to be baptized. And I'm looking everywhere for water, and this older woman in the church, she knows exactly what I'm doing, and she says, oh, it's over there. And by over there, I couldn't see it. We walk up one hill and down another. We walk hours to this watering hole. And when we get there, there isn't a word in the English language to describe the stench. There are animals and people bathing in it, animals everywhere. There are dump trucks being washed in it, and these people don't care. They start kicking off their shoes. They're so excited, and the whole church is singing and dancing and celebrating. And that's when I heard it. 1,000 miles from my hometown, I could hear my mom's voice singing, "John, oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. For the Father up above is looking down in love. Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see." Their smiles, as I took them and buried them in the waters of baptism and raised them to a new life in Christ, those smiles told me they didn't care about the parasites in the water. They didn't care that we just had to walk miles to be baptized. They didn't care about the hard pews. They didn't care about the rodents in the house. See, I had lost perspective. I had lost sight of Jesus. And anytime you lose sight of Jesus, you're going to get frustrated. I found him where you always find him, and the smiles on people's faces. So I want to challenge you this week. Friend, focus on the good things, not the bad. Focus on the eternal, not the earthly. And just remind yourself every single day, I've got more life ahead of me than behind me. And that'll keep you level, keep you where you need to be. Let me pray for us. Father, this whole room and all the other people that are tuned in, we are together in this. We're grateful tonight for your patience, grateful for your love, grateful that you don't give up on us. Because, Father, there are things that have bothered us that are pretty insignificant in the grand scheme of things. But, Father, there are also other things that have bothered us that bother you. So, God, I pray that you would turn our hearts towards things that matter, towards people, and that, God, we would be just the clearest expression of your love to others this week that we could possibly be. In this sad world, God, give us joy in the midst of our circumstances. Father, in this hurting world, give us a healing touch to be able to come alongside folks who are wrestling with addiction, those who are in the throes of a divorce, God, those who are wrestling with the loss of a loved one and the loneliness that goes with that, whatever the circumstance, God, we want to be your hands and feet. And Father, I pray for my brothers and sisters who are here that came in here angry. I pray, God, that in the coming days, weeks, months, maybe even years, God, through counseling, through the truth of your word, that you help them to forgive the people that have hurt them. Put that flame out in their hearts, God. We love you. We thank you for Jesus who brings all of us together, and we pray this in his wonderful name. Amen.
Speak to me when the silence steals my voice. You understand me. You understand me. Come to me in the valley of unknowns. You understand me. You understand me. You understand me, God. You understand me. I throw all my cares before you, and my doubts and fears don't scare you, 'cause you're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. So I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation, 'cause
would welcome me. I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free. As we sing this out, we are declaring that our fear, our anxiety, our hurt, a disease does not define us. Jesus has broken the chains of everything in this world. And he calls us sons and daughters. He chooses us individually every single day. So let's lift this up together.